Jade, the biblically accurate angel Warframe that has come to deliver salvation to those who need it the most. Have you ever been so angry at Jade Eximus units, those that shoot lasers at you, for just killing you so quickly that you want to give them a taste of their own medicine? Well, Jade can do that for you. What if I told you that Jade can not only heal herself, but also give herself and others a bunch of overshields? How about the fact that she can buff herself and others' ability strength or their weapon damage by just, standing around them? Or how about the fact that she can permanently armor strip enemies by just looking at them? Jade can do that and more without even breaking a sweat. So why don't we dive into this and explore some more? So you're probably wondering how to even get Jade in the first place. I mean, yeah, sure, you could probably just go to the market and spend your platinum on Jade. But that's how losers think! First things first, you need to complete the new War and Jade Shadows to gain access to her components. You'll get the blueprint off the bat for completing Jade Shadows, of course. Her components, on the other hand, are acquired by doing the Brutus node on Uranus, with the game mode Ascension. Alternatively, if you just hate the 5% drop chance, you can acquire her components from Ortis at the Drifters camp with Vestigial Motes, which can be acquired from doing the Brutus node. Let's start off with her passive, but before we get into it, let's jump over to the mod menu and play a little I Spy. On your left, you have Valkyrie Prime's mod loadout, and on the right, you have Jade's. Can you guess the difference between these two? Absolutely correct. Jade has 2 aura slots. Her passive gives her a second aura slot to be used for some reason. I wonder if that has anything to do with, the orb in her belly. Anyway, this essentially means that Jade has more mod capacity than any Warframe off the bat, but more importantly, you can use 2 aura mods with her. And that's not all. In addition to this, certain abilities will sometimes apply a debuff called Judgment on enemies, which gives a 50% damage vulnerability to them for 10 seconds. Her first ability, Light's Judgment. She tosses an orb of light at the ground, which will expand out into a ring that deals heat damage to any enemies within it. Any enemy that enters this ring will have Judgment applied to them. In addition, should you step inside the ring, you'll get a buff that heals you for a percentage of your HP. This buff has an infinite timer as long as you remain within the ring, and will begin to count down when either the ring has expired, or if you leave it. She can have a total of 5 of these rings out at a time, while it also functions as a primer for her fourth ability. Her second ability, Symphony of Mercy. She sings, I think she sings anyway, which creates an aura around her that can grant her one of 3 effects: power strength, weapon damage, or shield recharge / overshield generator. You can cycle through these by pressing her second ability key, as well as change the aura's effects while the ability is active. The multipliers granted by these auras are affected by her power strength. Not only does Jade benefit from these auras, but nearby teammates within affinity range will also benefit as well. This means that she's not only just a damage dealer, but a support as well. I feel like we already have a bunch of Warframes who do this already, but okay, have another one. In addition, the duration of Symphony can be extended when you kill enemies with Judgment on them, essentially meaning you can keep the buff's uptime indefinitely after casting. Her third ability, Ophanim Eyes, where she creates a bunch of eyeballs that stare at her enemies. Yeah, that's about as much as I can describe it. They're floating eyeballs that stare at you. Any enemies that are within line of sight will have heat damage inflicted upon them in addition to being slowed. However, the strength behind this is the fact she'll permanently strip enemies of both armor and shields. That's pretty powerful, actually. Not many Warframes have that mechanic in their kit, I think. The time it takes for stripping is based upon ability strength, meaning Symphony can reduce the time it takes for completing the stripping of an enemy. And with this ability active, you can revive allies from a distance if they're in bleed-out state. Her fourth and final ability, Glory on High. Jade will take flight, foregoing the usage of earthly weapons in favor of her Glory, the name of her exalted weapon. In addition to this, she gains damage reduction in the air, which scales off of ability strength, and an increased movement speed bonus, but loses the ability to sprint. Symphony can increase the damage of Glory either through weapon damage or ability strength aura. As an exalted weapon, Glory can be equipped with mods to greatly enhance its damage. In addition, it comes with base heat damage, and any enemies that are hit by Glory projectiles will have a chance to be inflicted with Judgment as well. Upon using alternate fire, you can detonate judgments above enemy heads to deal massive damage to them. But I find that it's more effective if enemies are grouped up together, since it'll chain the explosions into other marked enemies, generally killing most of them in the process. Now, we've gotten to the point in the video where you come up to me and ask me, should I use a Helminth on Jade? The answer? It's not really necessary to use one at all. Her full kit is already good enough as is that a Helminth wouldn't necessarily improve her functionality over what her base kit offers. If you really wanted to, you could subsume her first ability, but given that it grants you and your team some survivability and synergizes with the rest of her kit, this would be a difficult choice to make. Her glory can still proc judgments without her first ability, but it is a 10% chance for this to happen, so be warned. As for a Helminth to use over her first ability, you could use Nourish, since it not only provides you with viral damage on top of Glory's innate heat damage, which mixes really well, it can also help with the energy consumption issues that Jade suffers from in battle. So you're probably wondering how I managed to do the Jade Eximus ability in battle. It's actually quite simple. It's an augment for Jade's first ability called Jade's Judgment. This video actually wasn't originally going to revolve around this, but as I was gathering footage, this augment in particular caught my eye, and it had me redo my entire build. Essentially, whenever I place down a ring from her first ability, there is a 5% chance that any enemies inside it will have a Jade Light spawn above them for 3 seconds. Now, 3 seconds might not seem a long time, but you need to remember this is the Jade Light. The damage stacks the longer the beam sits on top of your head. The beam's duration is affected by duration mods, and the chance for it to spawn is affected by power strength. But I've noticed that neither of these really raise the percentages by much. If you're just starting out with Jade because you bought her from the shop, how should you go about building her? Well, for starters, you'll need some duration on her, some range if you can manage it, and a bunch of strength and an efficiency mod. I would highly recommend that you run Equilibrium on her, since it'll help immeasurably with her energy consumption. There's also Energy Nexus as an option, as it's just a stronger version of Energy Siphon. However, as a beginner, you're likely not going to have Energy Nexus. It's a mod that you get from fighting Murmur on Deimos after Whispers in the Wall. But it only costs like 5 platinum on the Warframe market, so if you can spare the platinum for Jade, you can certainly spare it for the mod as well. Here's an example of what a beginner's build would look like. As for aura mods, you can pretty much use any you have available at the moment. As for the build that I am currently using in this video, I've instead opted for using Umbra and Prime mods, while also foregoing range in exchange for duration and strength. When it comes to Exalted Weapon Glory, I went for Viral and Heat. That's usually my go-to when it comes to most weapons I use. Since Jade will armor strip her enemies anyway, Viral comes in handy for dealing more damage to the enemy. I also have Radiation slapped on top, since it'll create confusion within the enemy, making them less likely to target me in combat. Here's an example of a beginner build that you'd start out with on Glory, with Viral and Heat mods, as well as crit mods attached to it. And here's an example of what I'm currently using in the background gameplay, where you'll notice that I've forgone crit chance and damage mods, since during my testing I found out that a faster attack rate on Glory tends to beat out a Glory with crit mods attached to it alone. Now, let's see what Archon Shards and Arcanes we can slap on Jade. We can rule out any Amber Shards, because she doesn't really need that much casting speed to begin with. I mean, I guess if you want her animations to be slightly faster, one would be good. Other than that, placing Crimson Shards on her for duration or strength would be the way to go, depending on what you're lacking in terms of those. For the background footage in question, I'm not actually using any Archon Shards. What you're seeing is literally a bare bones Jade. So if she's this good without Archon Shards, I can only imagine what happens when you put a bunch of Crimson ones on her. As for Arcanes you can use on her, we have Molt Augmented, which gives you up to 60% ability strength after killing 250 enemies. There's also Molt Efficiency, which gives you up to 36% ability duration while your shields are full, which can be easily kept active by using Symphony's Overshield generator. You also have the option for Arcane Velocity, which will increase Glory's fire rate by 90% for 9 seconds when you score critical hits with it. There's also Arcane Avenger for absolute critical chance when you get damaged by an enemy. Of course, if you are still having trouble with energy upkeep, you also have Arcane Energize as an option, but as I don't expect most people to have it, it's not a necessary piece for this build. Glory can also be equipped with secondary Arcanes. I primarily use Cascadia Flare, which increases the damage of Glory for every heat status I inflict upon an enemy. You also have the option for secondary Merciless, which applies a 30% damage bonus that can stack up to 360% for every kill you get with Glory. For my closing thoughts here, Jade is a very fun Warframe to play, and she's really strong depending on your playstyle. You can either run her using her Glory, or you can just transform her into a weapons platform using Symphony and Ophanim Eyes. She's definitely on that list of strongest Warframes up there, probably more so towards the top of that list given her versatility and strengths. I would highly recommend getting her if you already don't have her, as she functions like what I would refer to as a offensive support, I guess? Since she brings both damage to her enemies and buffs to her allies at the same time. Well, I believe I've shared all that I can about Jade for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all around.